In this lesson, we'll go over creating, modifying, and deleting users in a Linux environment. So the first thing we want to do is to view the default settings when we create a new user. So we're going to do that by doing a sudo command. We go user add. That's D. Okay, so I put my password. All right. So whenever we create a new user, these are the settings that's going to be given to it. Now, in this next command, we're actually going to go over the settings that are applied to currently added new users. So let's get started here. Go to libs here. Let's see. Login dash deps. Deps. There you go. See, so it's a more detailed information about what happens when we're actually creating these users and their settings, and a little bit of information about each one of the settings there. All right, want to quit that. Now, the next thing we want to do is also look at a scale file. Now, what this allows us to do is see what files will be copied to the user's home directory when we create them. So let's look here. Ready? /etc/scale. Do this. Now, as you see, whenever we create a new home directory after we create a new user, these are the files that's going to be added to the directory. So for this example, we're going to create a user called Michael Anderson. Let's go ahead, sudo here. So we need higher level privileges to add users. And Anderson. Okay. All right, so is that. So now we're going to view the information of the user. So we scroll down and we see Michael Anderson was added at the bottom here. So reading from left to right, we see the first thing is the user ID. The next thing is the password, but an X is there to represent the fact that the password is stored in another file, which is going to be the shadow file. Next line is going to be the user ID. Next, the group ID. Then we have the user's default directory, and then also the default bash shell when a user logs in. So that's what that information is telling us there. So whenever you need to find that type of information out, just use that same command, cat etc password, and we'll get all the information we need. Next, we can create another user. But this time I want to add a comment to have their name appended to the information. So we're going to do Chris Mason. Mason will be his name. So of course, when we go to the password, let's see the information there again. So it's right below the Michael Anderson. Let's see C Mason. Again, the next indication is that the password file is in another file, the user ID, the group ID, and the comment represents the name. So Chris Manson, that's a good thing for us as administrators to be able to quickly find out who the username belongs to. And of course, the comment, the next thing is the user directory file. And then also, again, the default bash shell that we want to use for the user. We'll clear this here. And just a little bit more practice. Create another account for user. Hayden Riley. Click down here. Same thing. Keep it fast. Then our up arrow. Or Alexander. Again, up arrow. Quickly. See, they were quickly created there. So the next thing we're going to do is create a temporary user account. Here. User add. Got to create the -E stands for the expiration date. And it's going to be year, month, day format. That's be / here. Along with the username, we'll use R Stanley for our example. All right, quick get to this. Arrow. Now we see the user's add at the bottom. Now, a quick way to change the expiration is the change command. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I hope I am. But let's do it quickly here. And we can change the expiration date. And just say we want to make it 2022. 12, 31. Oops, not 13. 31. For R. Stanley. Huh. Looks like I have to, again, use the, let's do our equal earlier. Sudo here. There we go. So remember, the sudo exclamation point allows us to call the last command with the sudo command invoked. So it saves a lot of time. That's one great benefit of Linux as well. Another thing we can do is actually see what the information is. The change stands for change age. So it's only dealing with expiration date. So if we want to see the expiration date from Stanley, do it like this. Also, if we want to, we can change the, again, sudo, change the maximum days until the user has to rechange their password. So R. Stanley here. So pick it back up. Now we can see the days that the user has to have to change their password. Hopefully everything turns into PIV and two-factor authentication in your organization, but currently we still use the password. So 90 days is typically the standard for a normal user, and 60 is usually the standard for administrator. Another thing we're able to do is warn the user when they need to change their password. It's going to be change up or sudo w. Say 5 days or R. Stanley. Let me see if this is set for. All right. We're able to successfully configure every single one of the options for the password expiration. The next thing we're going to do is modify user information. So this is how we're just going to modify the user's account name. So we'll go R. Stanley again. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to change the user's name, but the syntax is going to be -L. We're going to use the name we want to change it to, and then the actual name that's currently in the system. So we're going to change it to R. Stanley 1 from R. Stanley. So we're going to verify the information was changed. Go to the Etsy password file. And we can see at the bottom is now R. Stanley 1 when it was prior R. Stanley. So that's some of the information we use. There's more documentation, of course, if you want to go to the man. And you can see all the options that are available for user modification. Now, as an administrator, sometimes it might be necessary to lock and unlock users. A quick way to do this, sudo password, and use -L. Well, using Stanley here. And we see they're locked. Now we want to unlock it. Just simply -up, change this L to U, and now we see we've unlocked Stanley's account. So again, very quick, very easy. Now in the graphical user interface, it might be a little easier, but this is much faster and much more powerful. So learning command line is very important. Now, in this lecture, we'll continue to focus on modifying users in Linux. So the first thing we want to do is a little refresher. If we go back and check these user accounts in the Etsy password file. Now, as you see, J. Kelly at the bottom, A. Riley, R. Alexander, and R. Stanley. Again, note the X after is showing that the password is stored in a different file. So the file in question is going to be sudo cat, because we have to have permissions to get to this file. And that's going to be the shadow file. The shadow file stores the hash of the password, not the actual password itself. And you can see here noted for mine and A. Riley's that the password is there. But again, for R. Alexander and R. Stanley, it shows the exclamation points. again, identifying that there is no password set. So the next thing we want to do is go through and set those passwords right now. So it's an administrative function, so we need to set password. We'll use R.Alexander. All right, we're going to set a password for them. So it's giving us an error, letting us know that it doesn't pass the dictionary check. For the example, we're just going to let it go. So we want to make sure it went through here. Let's go back to the shadow file. Now you see R.Alexander has a hash of his password shown in the file. So just for more practice, we're going to do one more for Stanley. Let's use the up arrow. R. Stanley. Password. Try to do a better password. A little bit more secure. Let's see what the fuss at us. All right. No fussing yet. All right. Looks like we're good to go there. Okay. R. Stanley has a password set now. Now, next thing we want to do is modify the user account just by adding a comment, merely stating their name. So we're going to go with R. Stanley first. We're going to use a user mod command. So we're just going to -C. It's going to be add a comment and give name, say Ramon Stanley. It's going to be his name, but it's example. And got to make sure we add it to the Stanley account. Enter. Let's go check that again. Again, we'll go to the password file to make sure we see information about the users in question. So here we go. Add password. So now we see, look at the very bottom, R. Stanley, Raymond Stanley. So the comments, again, are good information for an administrator to quickly see who a user is. That's what it's mostly used for, but you can add all type of other information, of course. And so we're going to stick with Stanley in this example. And this time we're going to actually just look and see the information for Stanley's password. Now to do this, we're going to go use the command from earlier, change age. That's what it stands for. Change. Again, I think I'm saying that right. Go to R. Stanley. And now we can see all the information about the password. The last time the password was changed, when the password expires, if it's inactive, when the account expires, the minimum number of days between password change, maximum number of days between password change, and the number of days before a warning is set to let the user know that they need to change their password. So this is a quick way to get all that information. Now we're going to test out one of these commands. We're going to go through and we're going to actually change the expiration of Stanley's password. Change it to 26/12. So also just remember of note, you have to use the year, month, then day. Let's see. Oops. Got to add to R. Stanley. There we go. And look at Stanley's again. And now you can see we've changed the account expiration date to December 31st, 2026. And again, we're just going to use another command. We're going to lock out Stanley. So this will be the sudo password -L. Okay. It's just stand to lock the account. And then if we ever want to unlock Stanley, the same thing. Go through here. The unlock key, the U. And now we've unlocked Stanley's password. Now, the last thing we're going to do is user delete. Now, it's very common that we're going to delete a user. Maybe the user leaves the organization, fired, terminated. So a quick way to do this is just a simple user del. So we're going to use sudo user del. All right, now I'm going to verify that that account is gone. Again, etc password file. And you see R. Stanley is definitely gone. Now, one thing to note, when you're deleting an account, it doesn't delete the directory that's stored along with Stanley. So if we check really quick, we'll see that we should still have R. Stanley's information as far as his directory, his files that are stored still in the system. So again, if you want to delete everything about the user, you're going to have to use the -R option. So we can test that out with A Riley. So let's try that. Sudo dash A Riley. All right. Now same thing. Let's check, make sure she's gone. All right. A Riley is gone. Now let's check to see if the directory is also gone. Yep, directory is gone. So that's a quick note how to wrap up and delete users, also to modify their accounts, change the expiration dates, adding comments, things of that nature. So that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next lesson.